Aaron Banks, and Vernon Hartley, along with two conservative white city council people, the only two we have on the board, of 2 out of 7. They are going to combine the government to set aside the power of a duly elected African American official. And they're in court this morning. The mayor is fighting. He's fighting to retain the integrity and the division of power that has served this country well for 200 years. A legislative branch, and an executive branch, and a judicial branch. And the legislative branch has now rescinded the mayor's emergency declaration. 2 days later, they declare an emergency of their own, and they select a contractor called Waste Management to pick up this garbage. Pastor Pickett, it's trouble in the land. It's trouble in the land, Pastor Pickett.
There's trouble in the land. It is. Absolute trouble in the land. And you know what? I'm reminded of the early years of my ministry when I studied the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and many other civil rights leaders. And the truth of the matter is, we gotta fight. And we can't stop until change comes.
You are absolutely right. We can't stop. We won't stop. We won't get tired. We won't grow weary. We won't turn back. Because this is our co-host who has joined me now, Napoleon. This is what he described, a Holocaust moment for the African American community. Welcome, Napoleon.
Good morning, Radio Land. Good morning, Uncle Socrates, my good friend, Pastor Dwayne Pickett, to all of you that are chiming in this morning on WMPR 100,000 watt station. Listen, we are in the battle of our life. I said we're in the battle of our life. Yesterday, I traveled all the way by way of Jackson, Mississippi to Dallas-Fort Worth. From Dallas-Fort Worth, caught a connecting flight to Chicago, Illinois. From Chicago, Illinois to Rockford, Illinois, and then traveled back via vehicle from Rockford, Illinois, all the way back to Jackson through St. Louis. Talked to many different friends, people that know about the struggle that black folks have went through, and talk to them about what we're dealing with down here in the South, Mississippi, with all its racist history, and how African American men had sided with this plantation type company. And when I tell you, people were appalled. When I'm serious, people, my friends in Rockford and Chicago, Illinois, were appalled to even hear that this type of practices was still taking place here in Mississippi, and that we had African American men that would stand up and support the slave man. And when I tell you, they were like, man, this is one of my closest friends. He is the director for security for the school district up there in Chicago. He said, man, I wouldn't live in Mississippi to save my life.
To save his life.
He said, I wouldn't live. Man, that was a sad indictment, because I have a lot of love for Mississippi. But he said, I wouldn't live in Mississippi to save my life. And when I explained to him, I said, well, let me tell you what's disturbing. I said, Jackson is the largest populated per 100,000 African American race. It's the second largest populated area for African American people behind Detroit. Even it outranked Chicago for 100,000 people for African American in a pop Jackson, Mississippi. And when I told him that, he looked at me. He said, "Ain't no way." I said, "Yes, it is." I said, "But let me tell you this." I said, African Americans are in control of. We got a black fire chief. We got a black mayor. We got a black police chief. We got a black superintendent over the school district. I said, we got more black churches than any other square footage area, square miles in the state of Mississippi. I said, but watch this. I said, in that city, we only get 0.1% of the minority contracts that go to the African American people that live in that city.
Wow.
He said, that's unbelievable. I said, now you explain to me, how does that happen in 2021? And man, and from there the conversation just exploded. It just exploded. And he said, man, we got to get y'all some help. We got to get y'all some help down there. And I told him, I said, you would think that the NAACP, our president, national president,
hadn't said a word.
Ain't said a word, lives right here in the state of Mississippi. Now, Derrick Johnson, I got a problem with that now.
Yeah.
I got a problem with that. You live in Jackson, Mississippi. You from this city.
Right.
We have loved on you, supported you, done everything you couldn't be the president of the NAACP if it wasn't for Jackson, Mississippi.
That's right.
And you have not opened your mouth to say a word. I don't have to say nothing about Dr. Young. I love him, respect him, has taught me a lot. Pastor Pickett reached out to him. But you reached out to him. But I mean, when you sit here and you sit down, Uncle Saad, and we do the numbers, you 75 years old, man. All of the PhD degrees that came out of Jackson State, all the black teachers we got, all the doctoral degrees we got, black families that done made money right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Not one of them has said, listen, man, let's lock arms.
Hadn't said a word.
Let's dig down in the trenches. And whatever come our way, we go deal with that. We go deal, but what we not go accept, and this is what I have said on this platform long before. And I learned this from Warren Buffett, and I'll give him his credit that I had to learn it from a white man. He said in one of his books on how to be successful, he says, what you decide not to accept will be the defining moment in how you make it to the top. See, a lot of people say what they will accept, but what you won't accept, that's what changes the game right there. And African American people ought to be locking arms this morning. Phones ought to be ringing. Parishioners ought to be calling pastors. Community leaders ought to be coming together. And they ought to be saying, hold up. Waste management. 35 years. You have enslaved our men. 35 years you have denied us promotions and raises. 35 years you have raped the citizens, the African American liberals who I sometimes disagree with. You have taken our money. You have taken our men and worked them like you did the plantation Negro. For 35 years you've done that. You've done way more than that officer did to George Floyd. You killed more families and more men than anybody ever could under the banner of work. Under the scope of work. You made it look good. But if you working a man for 10 years and he ain't got no benefits, and he gets sick from working on your job, from picking up COVID trash, and he becomes ill, okay? Now you done worked him for 10 years with no benefits. How does he provide for himself? Where is his coverage at?
Hold on a minute, Paul.
Where is his coverage at?
Hold on a minute, man. Answer the phone for me.
I'm ready this morning.
Here you are. Here you are. Answer the phone.
Go ahead, caller. You're on there.
I got two questions I want to ask.
Go ahead.
Why are they gonna put some whites on them garbage shirts?
Uh-oh.
What they need to do.
What caller?
What they need to do.
Let me tell you this, caller. You ready? Guess what?
I'm ready.
Ain't no white man go pick up no black folks' trash. You know that, don't you?
That's right.
Okay. You can't find no white young man to go out there and pick up that trash. He ain't going.
They need to change that then.
We need to change. Do we have another caller here?
That's Pitt coming back. Hold on.
Okay. Let's pick it back on. While he's getting it back on, caller, you're absolutely right. We need black folk to run the front office. We need black folk to be the owners. The money needs to stay in Jackson, Mississippi. We need to clean up our own city, pick up our own garbage, lift our own selves up. We don't need to be dependent upon white folk to come save us, because they're not. They're going to keep us enslaved. They're going to keep us in the poorest condition. And history tells us that. We're not prophesizing. We're talking about the reality over the last 200 years. Pastor Pickett, you back on?
I'm back on, and you know, Ms. Karen, I was listening and what Polo said and what you're saying. I've been thinking a lot about this. Woke up about 3 this morning praying about it. I want people to understand something, that to be silent is not an option. To be silent is not an option. To say, well, I ain't in it, is not an option. Because what happens is, those that continue to be silent, you get the benefit for those that pay the price. You know, so there were things that both you and I did not want to mention. There are things that Polo and I did not want to mention. However, here's the problem. A problem is now those few black business owners who have benefited from their relationship with waste management are now saying, just leave well enough alone. If that ain't the mentality of a house Negro, I don't know. That's the definition of a house Negro. To say, just leave well enough alone because you benefit from what's taking place.
And you gotta be bigger than that, African Americans. There is a thing called the greater good. There's a thing out there that I gotta stand back if it affects the community in a negative way, to the extent that my personal gain stands in the way of the greater good. Then I gotta step down, and the community ought to step me down. The community ought to come in and say, we won't let that happen.
Mr. Garrett,
Yeah.
Polo.
Yes,
But
sir.
what they don't understand is the oppressors have sent people to Mr. Garrett, myself, and gotten friends of ours to try to talk to us, and basically saying, we'll kick all them other minority Negroes out if y'all got somebody y'all want to put in.
Wow.
And I told them, if you don't get as far away from me as you can, I said, I don't get down like that. I'm for the people, right? And so, for them to be thinking like that, this is what I think we need to say. One thing I think needs to be said is, I double dare Waste Management to release those black business owners that they're using, release them from their no-compete clause, and let them talk about the truth.
Let them talk about the truth, and to expose everybody. We need to see all of the African Americans that are tied to waste management contract.
There you go.
We need to take, we're gonna be completely transparent.
Sir.
We're gonna put it all on the table, and all of those that are benefiting from this action, that are supporting this African American Council and these white racist people, we're gonna put it all on the table. And as a family, we're gonna fight. We're gonna expose it, and as a family, we're gonna put this family back together, but we gotta tear it down.
Sir, you said something, and I did some research the other day while I was on the road, on the plane. I was looking at, and I don't want to take this out of context, I was looking at the Panther movement in Compton. And I went to searching, and I noticed that even though the government identified them and sanctioned them as terrorists and things like that because they were, number one, supporting the Second Amendment, they were standing up for themselves. But when I took a closer look at their work in the community, I was amazed. Before there was welfare, there were the Panthers. Before the government came in and started giving us money, Panthers had food banks. They were feeding their people. But watch this. You couldn't pastor a church in Compton, California, and get the money. And this ain't no indictment on you, Pastor Pickett. This is just how it was. You couldn't pastor in Compton or in anywhere in California where the Panthers were set up if you were not taking part in community work. If you were not fighting for the social ills and woes that were aligning themselves with what was causing damage to the African American people. You have long said that Dr. Martin Luther King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Medgar Evers did not die for you to vote.
No, they did not.
They had already passed that era. The voting era, and we got people that are chiming in saying, go vote, go vote, go vote. But the Negro goes and vote and then goes home and sit down on Tuesday.
And get
Martin
rest.
Luther King was fighting for economic empowerment. He understood, he studied Karl Marx, man. When people talk about Martin Luther King, I get upset. Because if all you talk about is he had a dream, then you don't understand his ideology. You don't understand who he studied. The man studied Karl Marx. He understood that if the Negro didn't have money, he would always be dependent upon government. Our founding fathers of our country understood that government was not designed to make the laws. They were only designed to fulfill the requests of the people. That's why they said in the Constitution of the United States of America that we the people hold this thing to be true.
Lord have mercy.
We
Lord have
the people. We the people are saying that waste management is wrong. We the people are saying that waste management has done our black men wrong. We the people. When are we gonna learn that even those white men that shipped us across the transatlantic, that fought for the transit of the British to get them up out of here, understood one thing? They understood this. And even though we as African American people experience trauma on these United States shores of America, they understood one thing, that all men were created equal, and that's why they put it in the Constitution of the United States of America that we have the freedom of speech and the right to redress the government.
Teach, Polo. Teach it. That's all I can say.
We got a right, man.
I'm listening to this young man. This young man is.
When are you going to constitute your right? When are you going to use it? A lot of folks look at the Constitution of the United States and don't even understand. Constitute means I'm activating my right. I constitute something. That means to constitute, I'm putting it into play. You have to acknowledge it. That's why when you go down to the court of law and I say, well, Socrates, Gary, you offended me. Okay, it might not be a criminal matter, but it can be a civil matter. I'm activating my constitute. I'm constituting what I feel you violated, my right.
My rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit
of happiness.
Of happiness. The pursuit of happiness.
I ain't gonna let you get in my way of pursuing happiness, man.
They've set us down, Polo. The dream has been dealt a major blow. It's been dealt a major blow when African Americans have denied an African American firm the opportunity to pick
They're
up
right.
cash.
They're right.
They're right.
But watch this.
It's not an opportunity, but as you
Yes,
said,
that's their right.
it's their right.
And they went through the process. The RFP was legal. Nobody's contesting the RFP. Nobody said that the bidding process was rigged. Nobody said that the bidding process had been hand down and one person was in the noggin to go, well, I know you gonna bid this, I know you gonna bid it. FCC won it legally.
I need somebody, let's go back to the beginning now for our audience. Pastor Pickett, our folk need to understand exactly what happened here, way before it got to us. So kind of give us a chronology of what happened here.
What happened was an RFP went out for garbage collection in Jackson, Mississippi. By law, Waste Management's contract was coming to an end. They bid it out, and they bid it. It goes through a process, and an independent review board looks at everything and chose 3 companies that was best. Those 3 companies, FCC had the best product, the best offering. They were chosen by the mayor. The mayor's job is to present that thing to the city council. The city council should ratify that. However, the city council, for no reason that anybody understands, voted against FCC. Now, they have maintained a lie about one-day pickup. That was not a company decision. That was a city's decision to try to save money. But they even gave the option of a 2-day pickup. They gave the option of no garbage bins. So they changed the language and went back. Ashley Foote decided he wasn't going to support it because Richard Bradley's family, his wife, they were involved in it, so he wasn't supporting it. So they made a decision not to do that. So they brought it back a second.
So wait a minute, Pastor Pickett. Pastor Pickett, stop right there. Because the listening audience needs to understand what you just said. So a conservative white council member, because he has a personal dislike, and I'm not a fan of the M-Bar either, but I do like Richard as a person, as an individual. So listen to what you just said. So council member Ashley Foote is on record saying a non-support clause of this contract that was rightfully awarded to FCC after going through the whole entire procurement process. He is saying, I'm not supporting it because a young African-American man who I don't like is involved. Now, right there is where all the brakes should have hit the bus. This community, I don't care how you feel, because I'm not a big fan of the M-Bar. And I know what Ashley's argument is he doesn't want that club backed up to his ward. I get it. But it doesn't give him the right to violate the right of an African-American man that has did what he had to do. Company went through the process. That's his constitutional right, the free trade in America, this United States of America, this corporation. That's his right. And we sit here and let this man violate this man's right.
It's worse than that. He was only a small part of it, sir. He was just a piece of it. There were other minority contractors that were inside of FCC's contract. But that was one of the sticking points that was communicated to FCC, so they took Richard Bradley out. They changed what they were doing because that's what he said was his sticking point. There were other.
But how does he get to say that?
Listen to me. He can say, obviously, and our council can do what they want to do. All right. So at the end of the day, it goes back to the council. It goes back to the council, and they voted down again. All right. So they voted down again. So now,
what reason did they give for voting it down, Pastor?
They gave no reason.
They gave no.
They gave no reason for why. The people changed everything they said they had a problem with. They gave different options. It should have been a foregone conclusion. That was it. Let me finish. So here we go. To do that, the mayor's job now is to negotiate with the remaining two companies. One was Richard's Disposal. The other is Waste Management. Richard's Disposal decided he couldn't do it.
Richard's Disposal is a black firm, listening audience, out of New Orleans, Louisiana, that has picked up garbage for the last 50 years. 132 trucks on the street. Go ahead, Pastor.
So that means now he's negotiating with Waste Management, and he had already communicated with Waste Management, hey, you didn't fix the things we told you about before. So if we're going to do something, it will be a short term. They promised to bring him back a short term, but they did this. They brought back, they would not take anything but a 6-year term. The mayor and their negotiations fell apart. Okay? But what they were assuming was they were the last people at the meeting. Can nobody else do it, right? So the mayor declares the emergency declaration, and we decide, and I called Mr. Garrett, I called my brother, I called others, and we decide, let's help our city. Our city cannot be in a bind with this held over their heads about these young black men being mistreated and all these things.
Pastor, hold up right there for a second, because you call Lee Bush, a black African-American that had been in the garbage business in Jackson, Mississippi for 20 years, to help put together a team with the capacity to respond to this emergency declaration? Go ahead, Pastor.
Absolutely. We had the experience, we had the money, we had everything we needed in place, and because of the relationship of even getting involved, for me, had to do with the waste man, with the sanitation workers, right? We had others like Danielle Holmes and Polo and others working to say, okay, guys, here's your opportunity, right? So they hold over Lee Bush's head, comes to find out he has a no-compete clause. So he has a no-compete clause that he can't even talk about being against it. Now, mind you, he was not bidding against it. It wasn't against them, but the power and the money they had created a collective fear in the group to say, well, we don't want to take a chance and put Mr. Bush in any kind of harm. But so we get this coming, we're ready to go, we're ordering trucks, we're ordering uniforms, we're working from morning to night, trying to prepare, trying to get up, we're taking applications, we're working, getting ready to start picking up garbage October 1st. And the council then rescinds the mayor's emergency declaration.
And when they rescinded the emergency declaration, they in fact nullified the contract that had been awarded. During that period before the recession, Pastor, the mayor entered into a contract with National Waste United, an African-American conglomerate. Entered into a contract, ladies and gentlemen, not a discussion, but a contract. The mayor entered into a legal binding contract. And so then when the council met, Pastor, you said they rescinded the mayor's ability and power to declare an emergency in the first place.
And I want to talk about that.
And so when they...
It's never been done in the history of Jackson or any other city we can find.
Nowhere. And so when they rescinded, they smart now. They real smart. You got to understand that, white folk are sending them to play. Waste management is telling them what to say and how to think and how to act. So when waste management sent them the power to rescind the mayor's declaration, they knew that by rescinding that declaration, they nullified that contract with that African-American firm and canceled it. The game was to cancel that contract that African-Americans had under the emergency declaration, and they took that contract from an African-American firm. Aaron Banks, Vernon Holly, Virgil Lansby, Ashby Foote took that contract. And there was a real opposition in Angelique Lee and Brian Gazelle said, please don't do this. Please do not overthrow the power of our government and do not take this contract away from an African-American firm and give it back to a slave master that has had it for 36 years. So they knew what they did, Pastor.
Absolutely.
But let me tell you.
Okay.
They came back, give me one more thing, Polo. They came back after canceling his emergency and had the audacity to declare their own emergency.
3 days later.
And then turn around and choose waste management to pick up the trash.
Wow.
Now, mind you, they've already used the taxpayer dollars. They released it and got all of the city attorneys that we already paid through tax dollars. Put them out and hire their own attorney.
Wait a minute right there, Piggy. Stop right there. They didn't hire their own attorney. Because, I be digging and I be digging and I be digging. Now, what they went and got was an attorney that has a favorable relationship with waste management. And what we're now doing through the information request action, we want to see what were the terms in which the council agreed to pay this attorney that is representing them. Aaron Banks, quote, made it a statement in his town hall meeting. I got it. I downloaded, recorded. that he was concerned about the cost and what the city would be liable for. But what he didn't tell the members in that meeting is that he was part of the coup attempt, and that he, along with this attorney that they hired, the attorney had given the city council an inflated price on representing them in this matter. Now, in the special county meeting Monday, the mayor asked the attorney that is representing the council, because the council choose to hire their own attorney. There's nothing in the law that says when council and mayor are in conflict that the council has a right to hire their own attorney. Aaron made that statement, which is a lie. But what he did not tell, he was being very dishonest, and he did not tell that this attorney firm that they have hired has a previous favorable relationship with members of Waste Management.
And it gets deeper than that, Polo. 80% African American city, and I'm on this deal now for the rest of my life. I'm on this fight right now to the very end. Polo, we're gonna die in this ditch. Now, at 80% black city, the council didn't even hire
A black law firm. I just told you why. I just told you why.
But the citizens need to understand.
They don't see it, dog.
They got to understand.
Smoking guns, smoking my guns.
They didn't even hire a black firm. They keep taking everything to the white community, taking all of the resources out of the white community, and you gotta ask yourself why. You gotta ask yourself why. Go ahead, Pickett, finish up.
Well, you know, and this attorney and his explanation continue to say, well, I believe this can be done, but he advised, he covered himself now. He advised them to get a hearing to make sure it's legal.
Declaratory judgment. He asked them what we having at 9 o'clock this morning in front of Judge Graves. They asked him for a declaratory judgment. In other words, let me explain it in layman terms. He doesn't even know, as a lawyer himself, being paid by the taxpayers of this city, if what he was asking council to do was legal. The man don't even know. That's why he's asking the judge. Now let me tell you what a judge would do. If now what some judges would do, and a lot of people don't understand this word. A judge, she can say today, she can get down and say, well, you know what? I'm gonna recuse myself. And the word recusal means because I'm not qualified to answer this matter. Okay? But we believe that Judge Graves is go make a decision. We're not sure. At 9 o'clock we'll find out. But the attorney in his plea colloquy said that, listen, what I'm asking, because the mayor kept asking him, what changed from Friday till today? He couldn't answer. He couldn't answer. So watch this. So I went and searched the statute, called a couple of lawyer friends. They said, let me tell you something, Paul. Never in the history of the United States of America Corporation has an executive branch made an emergency declaration. A legislative branch. And the person that has been elected to make that decision has that decision rescinded by a lower branch of government. It's never happened.
Never happened.
Never happened.
It's a coup to
Never know.
It's a coup to overthrow the government. This is deep stuff, people. If this council is able to rescind this mayor's emergency and put their own in place, they never again have to come to the executive branch. They never again, he doesn't have any power. The council can forevermore just decide who gets the contract and what they're going to be paid. And we don't need an executive branch. You shut that part of the government down. And now Aaron Banks becomes de facto king.
In other words, he was questioning the mental judgment of the mayor. He was saying that the mayor is not qualified or mentally stable enough to say when it is an emergency. But 72 hours later, You called the same emergency.
Go ahead, Pastor. Go ahead, Pastor.
It gets worse than that. It gets worse than that because, you know, what you're dealing with is a level of stupidity that you can't even make this stuff up, right? You can't even make it up. You just can't do it. And what we got to understand as a community is that no longer can we allow this type of leadership to lead us in our government. We can't do it if we're going to survive. I have apologized. I have asked for forgiveness from my community because I used to be one on the sidelines saying, man, ain't they sitting down there? Ain't they? Now I understand that the level of intelligence is below what somebody needs to lead in the city if they care about people. But it's worse than that. One more thing, I'm going to be quiet, is the level of dishonesty blows me away. Nobody could have told me that Aaron Banks would lie as much as he has lied. Nobody could have told me that even Vernon Hartley would side with and go along with this type of shenanigans. Nobody could have told me that. I'm not surprised by Ashton Foote and Virgil Lindsay. That ain't surprised me. But even Virgil Lindsay voted for FCC. So why all of a sudden does Virgil vote for FCC, but vote against a black-owned company and questions the capacity of whether or not we can do it? Because at the end of the day, she does not care about us as a people, and she uses us to get elected, but she does not have an interest in the economics of our community. Last thing, and here's the warning I'm issuing now, because Mr. Garrett told on just like you. Some of my closest friends have told me not to get involved. You got too much to lose. You're a pastor, blah, blah, blah. I got too much to lose if I don't get involved. All that stuff won't matter if I don't get involved. That's what's wrong today in the church. Pastors, I hope you listen. We don't get involved. Now, I've asked God to forgive me, and I've asked my community to forgive me for not being more involved. However, at this point, I am willing to lay it on the line on this cause because I know if we don't change it, my granddaughters, my great-grandchildren will not have a place in this city. We've got to make sure we don't stop this fight.
Pastor, you can rest assured that we won't stop it. We won't stop this fight. We're going to take this fight and we're going to take this movement all over this country. We're going to take this time right here, this Holocaust moment.
That's what it is.
We're going to take this Holocaust moment and we're going to say never again. We're going to say that this is the ditch right here, that we tear it down. We got to tear this down, our citizens. We got to tear this government down. We got to rebuild it. We got to rebuild it with individuals who listen to their constituents, not individuals that go down there and all of a sudden become the smartest person in the room. They have a law degree to determine that what the mayor has done is illegal, and to, in fact, institute an illegal action of their own that they now got to get a judge to clear them on. And I want to say this to our citizens. Detrimental damage has been done to this African American firm. It's hard to hold black folk together, but this firm has stood together. They put their money on the table, put a $250 million line of credit on the table saying, look, we have the resources, we have the capacity to do this work. We put together 120 years. We had a lower price than Waste Management. Go ahead. Caller, you on the line? Caller, you on the line? So while we try to get that caller, just know that this firm has been harmed. The damage has been done. We had to send the trucks back to the dealer. We had to cancel the invoices, the down payments, to earn this money. We lost all that. The bond that we had to pay for, the $700,000 bond that we had to put up, we lost all that. the ability to do work in other cities. They were calling us in New Orleans. They're calling us in Memphis, Tennessee. We couldn't deploy our resources to other places. We lost all that. In that contract, there was a mobilization fee of $750,000 that this city owes.
Right now.
They owe that right now
They owe
because of
that.
this action of this council. They have harmed the taxpayers of this city. And they want to describe our contract, a $700,000 mobilization fee in a 30-day period, which it was never that. It was a 6-month contract. Waste Management came back and lowered their price to 2016 prices of $10.56 in order to stop the African American firm. Their proposed contract price was $16.72 compared to our $15. But the news media won't report that. They won't say that. They'll just say that it's a financial burden on the city if they choose the African American firm. No, it would not be. It was a 6-month contract. Play it out to the end.
The
Play it out
news
to the
media is
end.
part of the problem, huh?
There they are.
The new WLBT, WABT, and WJTV and their reporters are all anti. Let's just be honest about it, okay? And I was listening yesterday when I was on the show. I heard somebody call in, ask Pastor Pickett about a scripture, talking about read a scripture. Man, listen, God and Jesus and Mary Magdalene and everybody else is in heaven flipping upside down
Carl, you on the line?
that African American people are sitting here allowing this to happen.
Hold on. Go ahead, Carl.
I understand the garbage bill, but why y'all can't put that much interest in human life that had 100
Carl, don't hang up on him.
I'm
Carl.
connected.
Carl,
This is me. This is Pastor.
I want to call her back.
Well, hold on a second. Answer with that. Connect with that.
Carl, are you
Back to
on?
the top.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah, now hold on, Pick.
How
Hold
y'all
on.
doing this morning? This is John speaking.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was listening to you this morning, but I also was listening to the news.
Mhm.
And saying that the mayor's having a meeting this morning, and he's being represented by his own attorney or something in that meeting. I can't understand for the world that if you are going to have a representative, you are the representative. You the mayor. What do you mean? You got to have your lawyer representing you while you talk. I want to understand that. But one thing,
Let me help you understand.
yeah, help me understand that. Tell me why he has to have an attorney for to represent him at a city council meeting.
Carl,
I
I
didn't
call
the council meeting, sir. Go ahead, Tom.
Carla, we want to get back to that, but your first point was why don't we put more energy into the other ills in the city? Now,
No, I didn't say that.
That
That was
was
the caller before me.
that was-
okay, well, let me just address the caller before me real quick, because this is real.
But I can comment on that.
Well-
Why we don't do with eels, because I'm suffering with eels right now downtown Jackson.
That's right,
In
that's right.
Virgin
That's-
District, where they say she got all this here. I think I remember your counterpart that's sitting there with you. He said that she got a big district up there and she get everything for that. Well, she ain't moved it on down toward that Ferry Street, Mill Street.
She
district.
never does. She never does. Go check the record.
She can't even walk down there.
Yes, sir. And I call the city, both the sewers are stopped up. Water sits there.
She gonna let it sit there.
It's a bad engineering part right there. When they pulled Neal Street, they didn't build up Cohee Street to make it level. Water don't run up here. And I called a guy out here to try to find my water meter. And the water meter, the guy come out there, didn't even ask me, did I have a shelf? He driving in a truck. I said, man, you got to be crazy to ask me for a
Carla,
shelf.
let me help you out right quick, Carla.
I done called every department in the city. It's so much, what the word, I had the word for it. It's so much backward stuff going on with the city of Jackson, period. It's just like I got a bunch of wannabe intelligent people that's literally they compete with the subjects that are going on. And that's because we can't move forward is because we have too much confusion in our leadership position. All the way from the county, every day they up there arguing and calling each other stupid and dumbers and everything else. Man, this looks like some playground mess going on, man. And I'm looking for you to say when you get voted in, you can't reach none of them. I done called this girl,
Carla,
10 times on her personal number, and I can't get through to her. I can't get to know the party.
Hold up, Carla. Hold up right there. Hold up right there, Carla.
You got to
stop 1 second. Take a breath.
You got to join us, Carla.
Take a breath.
I feel you where you are, but we're going to have to deal with some other issues as we come to the close of this show. So thank you for your call, John. Now,
just put a little point in there right there, man. Let's get all the confusion out of it.
We will do that.
Thank you for calling, Carla. We got to take another call.
To the caller that wanted to know why we don't have as much energy on the other hills in Jackson, I really want to deal with that for a second. We are 150 to 180,000 citizens in this city. Everybody has got a role to play. No one group or one individual can tackle all of the problems. Everybody bear's got to put their hand to the plow. And right after this show, there's ought to be another group that's standing up and fighting about the things that you're talking about that are going on, about crime, about education. That all of these things need to be dealt with. But this group is focusing on this issue about economics because we believe that poverty is the root of all of the ills in our city. It is the poverty that creates crime-infested areas. When there is no light in the house, and when there's no food on the table, when the children got to walk past dilapidated buildings, that poverty is the main focus. So we fight that fight. You fight that fight of crime. Someone else fights the fight of education. Let the carpenters be carpenters. Let the choir sing. Let everybody's hammer ring, and then we'll fix this thing. But don't get on the backs of those that are trying to move forward for whatever their little cause is. Support them when they're trying to fight through it. Encourage them. Don't take them down.
Let me say this, to that caller that said something about crime. We, and I mean we, me, Pastor Pickett, the mayor, chief of police, just a couple of months ago, had a citywide crime rally. It was broadcasted on the radio. It was broadcasted on Facebook. We asked all victims of people who had been victims of gun violence, family come out, and we had a nice turnout. But the street should have been full. So when people call here and say something about crime, I be wanting to know where you been all this time. See, crime ain't just start happening. It was happening last year. This city should have been came together on crime. You can't expect you, me, Pastor Pickett, or the mayor, or the chief. It can't just be one or two.
No, it can't.
This got to be a collective effort to deal with crime. And we understand that poverty and crime do have a direct correlation.
No question.
But let me tell you the other part about that. When people talk about crime, the other part of that is education. Now you come in here and you let 9 African American schools be shut down. Black men, we don't want to take care of our kids anyway. We at least ought to make sure that they keep the schools open so that they can watch them for the 8 hours that we don't want to be bothered with. And you ain't had nobody say nothing in this community about the closings of our schools. Was when you alleviate education, you stack poverty on top of that, and then you have a failing economic system. What do you expect to happen?
Paula, let me say this.
Come on, man.
We're getting ready to close out here in a minute. So let me be clear with the listening audience. This is real complex stuff. The government, who black folk has always looked at, is on their side to rescue them from the racist oppressions of the slave master. That's when we start thinking that the government was there to save us. Never before that. We didn't have no government when I grew up. We didn't deal with that. Black folk defended themselves and their farms, and they grew their own crops and things of that nature. But now we have become dependent upon the government. But that's a big trick. The government is our worst enemy. This government is what's keeping us down.
Dependent.
The policies of this government go back to the Watts riots when J. Edgar Hoover decided that he was going to kill Angela Davis and Huey Newton, and when he decided he was going to kill Ralph Brown. Go back, people, and look at, he was part of the government. Go back and look at the policies that they instituted when they said that no black female could get any assistance for her children if a black male was in the house. So when they in fact took the black male out of the house, they took him out to destroy the black male. When you destroy the black male, folks, you kill a race. When you destroy the male of any species, you kill the species. Black females can't survive. They can't reappropriate. They can't grow the family. When you destroy the males, then they created policies on crack cocaine that if an African-American man was caught with a small
$20 rock.
Well, crack cocaine, that he would get 85% of the time he got to serve, while cocaine that white folk were on and had been on for 100 years.
They've been freebasing since the 60s.
Since the 60s, there was no crime associated with that. People, the government now has taken control over the slave master. Always. In the civil rights movement, the sheriff ran the Klan. The government, the mayors of those cities ran the Klan. And then we finally break through and get elected African Americans in our government, and they take on the role of the Klan. They take on the role of the slave master, and they beat us down till today. Sitting here right now today, garbage may go in the streets in Jackson tomorrow morning, and citizen, this company, this firm will not be able to save you. We will not be able to pick up garbage starting tomorrow morning with a 2-hour notice. We're not going to let black folk put us in a situation where we cannot succeed. We always have to run faster and jump higher than anybody else just to prove ourselves. But we won't be put in this trick by this council. Come back and have a declaration to say, okay, it's emergency. We're going to honor the mayor's declaration, tell him to put the black firm in within 30 minutes. That the hell won't happen. So we're in a situation where now we got a black firm that's been destroyed. That maybe we can put it back together, maybe we can't, but we're gonna fight to the end trying to do so. Go ahead, Pastor.
One thing I've made a decision to do in this fight, I ain't wasting another second asking white folk to help me. I ain't wasting another second blaming white folk until we get out and tell the problem straight. Until black council people like Aaron Banks, Vernon Hartley, and Kenneth Stokes, and people that represent people of color like Ashley Foote and Virgil Lynn, until they begin to care about their constituents in such a way that they look to benefit their constituents, they look to benefit black-owned business. Mr. Stanton from Stanton Body Shop called me yesterday, and he blessed my life. Because he said, if a black company gets the contract, he might have an opportunity to fix some of the trucks when they get messed up. He's never fixed a waste management truck in 35 years. Something wrong with that. Our people are dying because of a lack of knowledge. And I'm so glad you and Polo are there, and y'all nice. And all that craziness that people call about. I ain't taking that anymore. I'm done with it. I'm 52 now. I'm not taking no crazy. You want to be crazy? I'm gonna show you crazy.
Doc, let me show you.
I'm gonna show you. Hold on. I'm gonna show you crazy in Jesus' name. You want to call me with a quote, a scripture? I've been studying the scriptures for 30 years. I got 3 masters and a PhD dealing with studying the Word of God. So don't call me when you don't understand what's going on. Don't call me trying to get me told and get us told. We know we're doing the work of God.
Pastor, we're coming to the close of the show. We got 2
2
minutes
minutes.
left.
Let me say this before we close.
Go ahead.
You know, I'm peacock proud. I'm hippo happy. to be in the company of great men. You know, I hear people all the time try to say certain things about this and about that. But let me tell you this, and I want to send this out to all African American men, young men. It don't matter what you done did. What matters is how you look at what you did and what you did after you did that. Too many times in our community, we got people always trying to talk about what you did. We want to talk about what happened after you did that. Muhammad Ali said, and Malcolm X said the same thing. He said, the crime is not what you committed. The crime is remaining committed to the crime. Too many times, sir, we paralyzed by the past. I'm like, Pete, you can't hold me down with no past stuff. Because when I made up in my mind I was gonna fight for my people, man, listen, I took on, I didn't care who you were, you know that. I don't care, I'm gonna shout it to the tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, that if black folks don't stand up for themselves, ain't nobody coming to save them. And I mean not even Jesus, because he done did what he had to do. He went to the cross. What else can you ask for? It's on us now. The ball is in our court, black people. Ain't nobody coming to save us but us. All the saving mechanisms are in place right now. Guess what they are? They're your right to vote, your right to redress, your right to understand the Constitution of the United States, your right to get on the phone this morning and call all 7 council members and tell them, I'm a constituent of your ward, I'm displeased in the service that I've been getting, and it's time that you do something about it. We'll be back on the air tomorrow morning from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Please make sure that you join us. Also, we're headed down to the courthouse right now to support the mayor and to see how this plays out in the courtroom. Keep it locked right here to WMPR 90.1, the 100,000 watt station. You have been tuned in this morning to the Socrates Garrett Pick and Polo Show, man. We are fighting the good fight of faith. See you back here tomorrow morning. Keep it locked.
Citizens of Hines County and the Jackson Metro area, this is Marshawn Crystal, and I want to be your next sheriff. As a former Hines County investigator, a former chief of police of a rural police department, and